If Formula One let Abby Lee Miller make a Dance Moms pyramid after every Grand Prix, this is what it would look like after the Brazilian Grand Prix. At the very bottom of the pyramid, Etsy witches. There's no other explanation as to what's going on with Ferrari other than someone has been hired to curse them. This is the best theory I can come up with as to how we somehow ended up with a double DNF and Lewis Hamilton being forced to bring that car around the track over and over again with the damage that they had as they waited to find out how many penalties he would have to serve so that he didn't have to serve them next week. Fifth on the pyramid, Yuki's horoscope. Look, here's the thing. I feel like a number of people had just complete acts of God that were taking them out left and right. And while I'm gonna say that we could blame Gabriele Bortoletto's weekend on the Etsy witch that was definitely hired to curse home races this season, Yuki Tsunoda had the kind of weekend that means he opened his CoStar app to some sort of notification that just read, "Go back to bed." Not only did he find himself with penalties, he also found himself with a penalty for a penalty not being served correctly. And frankly, I would like to talk to whoever is in charge of his star sign. This is outrageous, put his moons back in alignment, and I don't actually know anything about horoscopes. And last on this row, Oscar Piastri's pit strategy. Look, I know a lot of people are going to be contentious about this penalty that he received at the beginning of the race, and whether you agree with it or not, the one thing that you can say is that the team knew that they had that 10-second penalty, and they left him out for a pretty long stint if they weren't intending to extend into a one-stop strategy to try to make up some of those spaces. On this portion of the pyramid as well, I do think Abby Lee Miller would have something to say about Oscar Piastri's current mental game. And I'm speaking for Abby Lee Miller, please do not attack me. In third place on the pyramid this week, Lando Norris's perfect weekend. Now, I know you would have thought that's gotta be on the top. Absolutely not. Just like Abby Lee Miller, I intend to keep you guessing. And honestly, Lando did have a perfect weekend. Pole position on sprint converted to the top step of the podium for his sprint race, followed by pole position for the race and of course winning the Grand Prix. And the only reason he's not in the top slot is because in terms of other drivers, he had pretty stiff competition. Which leads us to silver. Second position, Kimi Antonelli. I swear to goodness, I did not expect Kimi Antonelli to be as impressive as he has been this year, and this weekend was one of those where you just can't deny that he is a future world champion. Which of course leads us to who's getting the solo next week, and for the second time in a row, it's Max Verstappen. From the pit lane to the podium, and for a moment even feeling like it might be from the pit lane to P1, Max Verstappen had a terrible weekend until this Grand Prix. Last year, he went from P17 to winning the race by nearly 20 seconds, but that was in the rain. This year, with dry conditions, Max qualified P16 after being knocked out on pace for the first time in his career, took setup changes and started from the pit lane, and ended up on the podium. And that's why, if Abby Lee Miller was in charge of Formula One, Max Verstappen would take Maddie Ziegler's solo next week. Let me know what your Dance Moms pyramid would look like for this race. And be sure to follow along as I will, of course, do my more standard in-depth breakdowns this week.